Alrighty, so for part two of Cyber Chase, let's just go over kind of at a fairly detailed level, just because it is really good to understand how to get the most points from the time that you've spent. The approach that we're going to take is pretty much what you did in part one, but I just want to clarify a few things that I saw when students were submitting this work. So first thing is my instruction file here is you're setting up a new file, right? So we know what we do. We copy the previous one, we remove the previous queries, update the new SQL file for the bash, for the proof of work command, and also the actual output. Then in the README file, we're going to continue to use it. I definitely recommend putting this at the top. Like I was looking at this today, and I have my other stuff down here, but having this at the top, and like I say, I go through and do each one. These backticks are really important. If you did single quotes, it doesn't render the way, it makes it easier for me to view it and for you to see as well. So make sure you have all those in there, and then start your normal terminals, and then commit with your part two is ready to go. Now, this next section applies to each problem you're going to do. So you're going to do 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, okay? So for each one, right, you do the problem number. Now remember, these are headings. Heading 2 for the problem number. This up here was a heading 1. So those are important, right? Knowing how to format those is important. So now in your SQL terminal, oh, sorry, let me finish this. This is what I was just talking about, so I was also giving you an example. Now, when we're looking at this output here, it actually is in backticks. So, but what I did when I was writing it here, I showed you those hard, and this is what we call a markdown, the syntax, versus if we looked at the markdown as a rendered file, okay? All right, so in your SQLite terminal, write the SQL to solve the problem, right? So first analyze, read the problem carefully, make sure you understand it. Make sure you include the .print for every problem so that it shows up in your proof of work, right? Now this is where you're building your proof of work file, right? And you know, if you can read the problem, and there's very few people I know can do this. I'm just going to tell you, there's very few people that can get it on the first try. If you're one of those people, you still need to then show me the way you think, the way you approach that problem. But I'm telling you, having reviewed last week's, most people needed a couple of attempts to get this done. And these are, you know, they're the last part of this. So there's some that are a little more evolved. So this should not be a problem to do this, okay? So once you have the correct output, and again, I've given you the content from CS50 site for the number of returning rows and columns you should have. And this is the schema, no difference here, right? So now once you have the correct output on the terminal, then copy, right? Copy that terminal. Now do not include the actual output, just your query attempt. So what I should see in between these two, and most of you did a really good job with this, is you showed me your attempts, and that's what I look for, okay? Now, for each problem, in addition to, right, once you do the proof of work, then you're going to write another query that is for the count, right? Now, this time, make sure you're using aliases. We've learned about how to use those so that you might, you know, whatever you're counting, you might refer to the problem, you might refer to something else, but have those as an alias as well, okay? So you can also, and I do this .print for every problem. You can also, I would say, actually, I'm going to say this have the .print, even if you're using the alias, for the query that shows the count. Okay, so now once you have that all set up, right, then you complete the proof of work, the get workflows, and this is what you commit. Right? Now this again is only for one problem. You do this for each problem. Make sure, because each of these components is part of how you get graded. Okay, so make sure you have that down. So then under here, and then on 13 you get to write your choice. You just have to meet the criteria for what it needs to include. And now, really good, many of you did take the break offered, and by the way, the break is good for various reasons. One, it allows me to look, and I will do a review once I see it, but in order for you to get that, you have to go from 8, 9, and hit 10, and make sure all those commits are there, all that work is there, because that's what I'm going to look at. And then you submit your commit history for the CyberChase folder, and then come back and do the rest of them before the due date. Now, to get this, you have to include in your submission comments in Canvas, you're taking a break. You don't need to add a commit for it. Just tell me in your submission. And now, if you finish early, meaning before the due date, you can actually get a second review of your work. So there's really, I built into this class ways for you to actually improve your grade if you're missing stuff. So hopefully you're taking advantage of that. And so here's how I grade, right? Did you give me the URL? Did you do all the commits? Did it include all the workflows? Specifically, this is 60 points. It's actually about 30 points for each one of these, right? And then, of course, you have, if you're submitted after the due date, it's 25 points off. Okay. So make sure you got this. Please reach out for help. You have everything you need to complete this. Remember, as you're doing this, this is your practice for a technical interview. I know I've talked about it in attendance, but it's worth saying again. Okay, talk to you later.